All right, I think we're close enough. I will call the regular meeting of July 6, 2016, the Oregon City Commission to order. Before we get started, we will have an executive session immediately following the regular meeting in the Oregon Trail Conference Room, pursuant to ORS 192.6602D, 2E, and 2H. To conduct deliberations of persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions, and to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regards to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. With that, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Mengelberg is absent this evening. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Mayor Holliday?
Here. So if you please stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so ceremonies and proclamations, and we have one that is not on the agenda for tonight. But as we are recognizing our outgoing City Commissioner Carol Pauley, do we have something for Commissioner Pauley? Mm-hmm. So let me read this before I present that to Commissioner Pauley. It's been an honor working with Commissioner Pauley over the last 4 years. Carol's provided many contributions to this city and the community. Her service and dedication are exemplary. I would like to take this opportunity to mention some of the many boards and committees that Carol has participated in during her tenure. You've been involved with the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, Downtown Oregon City Association Board, the Willamette Falls Heritage Coalition, and Willamette Falls Legacy Project. These are only a few of the many examples of how her passion for the city has manifested itself throughout the community. Although it is difficult for us to see you leave, we truly appreciate to have had an opportunity to work with you. At this time, I would like to present you with this plaque. It's with grateful recognition for your service and dedication to the citizens of Oregon City, March 2012 to June 2016. Thank you, Commissioner Pauley. I also want to say that Carol and her husband Craig have been extremely successful business owners in Oregon City, have taken what was a dilapidated old building and have grown it over the last 20 years into quite the facility. And so they've done a service to Oregon City by taking care of one of our older buildings and taking an old bar and turning it into really a destination point at this time. I think they have more pool tables in the historic Midway Public House than any other place other than in right downtown Portland. So we appreciate the not only the work that Carol's done on the public side, but both of them have done on the private sector side. So, Carol, if you'd come up. So this says, presented to Carol Pauley, City Commissioner, March 2012 to June 2016, in grateful recognition of your service and dedication to the citizens of Oregon City.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm very, very humbled, and you all work so hard. Our city is in good hands, and nobody realizes, I mean, everybody makes it look easy, but it's not. There's a lot that goes involved in it, and I'm so thankful to have had the experience of being on the commission and working with the staff and working with all the commissioners, and it's been a great experience. Thank you so much.
Well, and we know your political career isn't over. It's just starting. So hopefully there'll be a time in the future when you can come back and help us in Oregon City again, or maybe serve us in the legislature or some other form. So
I think the bug bit me.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nice.
Okay, so back to the agenda. Citizen comments. Anybody on the list?
We have one citizen comment, Paul Edgar.
Mr. Edgar? 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commission, and everyone here. Kenema's parks are having a problem. I'll start with something that's not in writing, but the Kenema Children's Park got invaded on the 4th of July, and some very bad people came in, abused dogs, set off huge amounts of fireworks, and literally placed our lives in danger with potential of major fire. We tried hard to allow people to do it. We've reported the license plate number of the cars, and we have witnesses, and we have pictures showing these big stacks of fireworks that were expended right in Kenema, and it was awful. It was but the potential of damage to all of us under the fire conditions was real. But in the transparency mode, we've asked repeatedly to get information on what we perceive based upon comments we're getting from the victim, where a person was mugged in Kenema. He was down taking pictures of the falls at Old Kenema Park. As it's related to me, when he came back up to his car, somebody had broken out the window of his car and were inside of his car at the time, and he had expensive camera equipment over there. They ordered him to lay down on the ground. He refused. He's 71 years old, as it's related to me. He said, I don't want, and to himself, as it was related, he didn't want to have his life put in danger being down on the ground where he couldn't defend himself. And then they started throwing rocks and big stones at him. They wanted to throw it right at his groin, but he moved around. They hit his side, his stuff. He had real major bruises and damage. But for our neighborhood, the problem is that this is a place where much of the drug activity of Kenema or of the city is being transacted. From my house, I see the cars going out of there like a zigzag at night, 7 by 24. What we're asking for is a review of the camera world, getting pictures and license plate numbers, but we got to do something where we reverse it, because now it's known as a place negative. We want to turn it to positive. We want to reclaim our park, and we need your help. So please help us. It's important, and we would love to have more conversations with the chief and others on how we can reclaim the park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so everybody okay with the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. We have no public hearings. We're on to general
Mayor.
business.
Sorry, excuse me, Mayor. We did want to add one item. Restrictive covenant, non-remonstrance agreement for Icon Construction and Development LLC for the Douglas Grove subdivision to the agenda for the
I was
consideration.
aware of that. So are we going to do it first or last?
Oh, I'm sorry. We just wanted to make sure it was on the agenda
Well, let's
under
just-
general business whenever
Let's
you're
just
ready.
take that one right now. That way, because it's not on our list.
Okay.
So this is something that's comes up regularly and is pretty standard form. It's a non-remonstrance agreement for every development that's developed in Oregon City.
Excuse me, Mr. Lewis. Is this something we would normally put on the consent agenda?
Yes,
So is everybody okay with us just tossing this on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
All right.
that's fine
let's
with
do
me.
that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So now we're back to where we were. 7A, PC 16-069, request to continue annexation file AN-16-001 for the property located at 19358 South Columbine Court to July 20th, 2016. Is there any necessity for a staff report?
It's at the will of the commission.
I think this is routine.
I was curious why it's with us and not planning.
So let me start. Let me start with answering some of those questions. So I am going to have Laura Torway, our new community development director, who has accepted the position with the City of Oregon City.
Thank you very much.
So very, very excited to have Laura as part of the executive team. She's been here over 13 years, starting as a volunteer. She just has an amazing work ethic, a wonderful way with citizens, both who are happy with us and some who have concerns. But she has just done a really great job, and after the extensive search that we did, she was the choice, and I think she'll be a great fit for Oregon City.
So I want to just add that I'm excited to see us moving folks up inside the organization, taking people that we know and have trained and giving them their next leg up. Laura probably wasn't the most qualified candidate in the pool, but she fit Oregon City the best, and I think that's what's important, is that we have people that know us, know our citizens, know what's going on, and so I'm confident that if she'll be able to step up and fill Tony's shoes. And thankfully, if she has questions, her old boss is just around the corner. So go ahead, Mr. Conkle.
Ms. Turway, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So this annexation is before the Planning Commission. We had to renotice the application, and that's why we're asking for a continuance tonight until July 20th. The Planning Commission hearing is scheduled for Monday, and if Planning Commission approves it, then it'll come back to you for review on July 20th.
Motion.
So that's the reason, because we had to get Laura on board here tonight. That's the reason I asked the question. You know.
Thank you.
That's the reason for it.
He was just giving you a little opening.
I'll give you a little segue
since he
to
took away my
introduce
public
our-
comment period.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. You know, so that was the reason for that. Smooth, seamless.
I move to continue annexation file AN-16-001 to July 20th for the property located at 19358 South Columbine Court.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
All right.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. Turn that back a little bit. Okay, moving on. Next one is 16-399, resolution number 16-18, voter referral to adopt a 3% tax on recreational marijuana sales. Who's the...
Tony Conkle.
Ms. Turway.
Thank you. All right, so as you know, in 2014, the city adopted a local tax on marijuana. It was 5% for medical and 10% for recreational. This was before Measure 91 passed, which allowed marijuana legally in the state. Since then, though, Measure 91 has been tweaked a little bit by the legislature, and some of those tweaks include a regulation that allows the adoption of local tax for up to 3% on recreational marijuana if it goes before the vote of the people. So with this request, we're asking to go before the vote in November for a 3% tax for recreational marijuana. You can no longer have a tax for medical marijuana, so it's just the recreational. The funds will come into our general fund, so they can be dispersed in many ways. This resolution also includes the ballot title and then authorization for the city manager to move forward with that. As you know, there's a separate ballot measure from the city to ask Oregon City voters if we would like marijuana businesses in Oregon City. And then currently the planning division is working on time, place, and manner regulations. So where would we sell it and what would that look like? So this is just the tax piece of marijuana. And with that, we recommend approval.
Questions?
So the state has the 5% and we'll have the 3%. Is that correct?
So currently, we beat Measure 91 before it came out. So we said 5% for medical, 10% for recreational. Now we just want to sync up with the current regulations, which say 3% for recreational, 0% for medical.
So I believe the state, it's either one way or the other. Either the state goes from 17 to 25% on recreational, or it's the other way around. I don't recall.
The state will impose a 17% tax. The cities are authorized to impose up to a 3%. So it'll be
Right. So
20%.
the states right now is charging a 25% tax on
Right.
recreational, and it'll go down to 17%.
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 16-18. Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Just get the motion and then I'll let Mr.
To adopt the 3% tax on recreational marijuana sales.
Second.
Mr. Gifford.
Mr. Mayor, is this on?
I don't know. Is
Mr. Mayor,
the red
City
light on?
Commissioners, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. I just had a brief question. Do we know, are there any restrictions on how that accumulated tax revenue has to be spent?
It's to the general fund.
To the general fund, and
Yes.
it doesn't have to be spent on enforcement or education or any of that stuff.
Direct to the
We can
general
spend it
fund.
any way we want. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Yep.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. As soon as my monitor will let me go back. Next, we have 16-324, Economic Development Incentive Program, award to Orchid Orthopedic Solutions, Oregon, Inc., Mr. Underwood, there you are.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
Mayor. So I'm really excited about this one. This is just an example of our economic development programs working out there. So we have an economic development program called the Economic Development Improvement Program that was established earlier this year, January. It's an incentive program that's geared toward traded sector companies that are hiring new employees and are expanding or building new construction. The applicants for this grant, the total award is $75,000, and the applicant for the grant has to show a hardship in their expansion or construction, and so that's one of the major criteria, along with the job creation. Orchid Orthopedic Solutions was our first applicant. They are applying for $75,000 for an expansion project that includes purchase of new equipment that will enable them to hire 20 plus new living wage jobs and reclaim production space to make their production and output more efficient. And they're expanding rapidly, and due to the rapid nature of their expansion, they're having trouble accessing capital at the time that they need it. So that's why they're applying for this grant. So staff has reviewed the application, has talked with the applicant at length, and we're recommending the full award of $75,000. Total project being $185,000. And the applicant, a representative from the applicant, is here tonight, Mr. Kent Hempel, in case you have any questions.
Mr. Shaw?
If Ken wanted to come up, and we may have a little discussion here, I guess. Talk about Orchid a little bit, what you do there and everything. So,
Well, can I do that first?
what's that?
Talk about Orchid? Would that be okay with you?
Well, I just thought since he was here.
Well, I know, but I think I probably have a longer history with Orchid than the gentleman has. So if we go back, way back into Oregon City's history, we used to have a thing called Territorial Days. And Orchid started out as Ped Manufacturing, standing for Peter Allen Day.
Oh my gosh.
And they made the original medallions that they started by making the medallions out of their garage on Thayer Road for the Territorial Days. And from that little shop in the garage, they expanded into their facility on First Street. My brother worked for PED for, I don't know, probably 20 years. He's down with another investment casting firm in Albany now. I actually drove the heat treat truck right out of high school for a year or two. So Orchid has been around in Oregon City for a long time. They've had several different names, but they've been a quality manufacturing company in Oregon City for well over 30 years. So with that,
Very cool.
I will give it to you, sir.
That's way better than I could have done. So 3 years ago, we entered 2013 with 108 employees, and this week we exceeded 200, including temporary employees for the first time. So we are growing rapidly, as Mr. Underwood said. Basically what we do now is just purely in the medical industry. We make investment castings for implants in people's bodies for orthopedic surgeons. Some of our growth is just volume the last few years. We're selling more of those. We've added new customers, et cetera. But most of our growth has gone from taking what we call a rough casting and turning it into something that's got more of a mirror polish. And to do that, we require both pretty precision cutting equipment, grinding equipment, as well as people who have the right kind of skills to finish the polishing job as well as cleaning. So the particular request for equipment here is in a couple things. Number one, the industry overall is getting more regulated by FDA people, so we need extra people for that, as well as our customers are requiring more precision. So the first piece of equipment is for a laser marker that increasing requirements of those machinery to even mark on curved surfaces beyond what we have right now. And the second one, part of it is to move equipment to free up space so that we can, at this point, we're looking to double our capacity to add employees to machine and polish, or to finish the polishing process.
So the laser marking is so that each individual piece can be serial numbered and identified for later reasons, whatever those might be.
Worst case scenario for a recall, but traceability period so that people can prove, even down to the materials, that there's been integrity the whole process.
And many times in plants like that can be used to identify someone if there isn't any other form of identification. So,
fortunately, true.
Why don't you talk about the investment casting process a little bit and about the wages of your employees?
Okay. I probably should have brought something else, would have been something similar shape to this, but it would have been in wax. Essentially, investment casting is a little bit what the process that Indians in the southwestern United States go through to make jewelry. You start with a shape in wax. We happen to make tools that make the wax in the exact shape, but it's a mold. But you start with wax. You cover it with a shell that can handle a whole lot of heat. You drain the wax out. Then you heat back up the shell in metal. You pour the metal in. You essentially get rid of the shell, and what you have left is something a little bit like this, and you move to it to get it closer to the shape of what goes in a person's body. A number of different materials. There's a time to this. It doesn't just happen in a moment. And so we need people who are knowledgeable in processes as well as being able to handle parts well. Wages for our employees, I think starting wages are pretty competitive right now in the whole Portland area. I think a lot of our people are starting between $14 and $16 an hour. But that has certainly been going up. And as I mentioned before, some of what we're adding is people like engineers, people that can do programming of equipment to make this kind of tolerances and finish. There's things like threads there, et cetera. There's quite a bit of programming and stuff that goes on as well. So while it's what I would describe as an old, heavy industry, there's a whole lot of high-tech things going on as well.
Questions?
This is at the current location, right? Or you're staying at the same location?
Yes, we're doing everything we can to use the same location, but to use the overall facility more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good news. Manufacturing in Oregon City, and you're hitting that 200 employee mark. That'll be, I think, number 2. I think Benchmade's right at 200, and this is good news for Oregon City, especially on the family wage jobs and stuff. So we're always looking for more of that industry and manufacturing. That's why we've got our Beaver Creek concept plan rolling, and this incentive plan here is working now. That's good. So are you guys doing anything in the 3D printing yet, or especially with those smaller parts? It seems like it'd be a great idea. So
we have one customer who their model is essentially a patient who's in need of a knee replacement. Can't be anything catastrophic like a car accident, but whose knee's deteriorating. They'll do an image for that employee or for that patient and schedule a surgery 21 days later, and we will, with a wax printer, make not just something that's the right size for somebody, but in every aspect of geometry, something that fits their ligaments and muscles and everything, and it's that is a part of our business.
So instead of having to have a mass-produced mold, you guys can use a 3D printer in wax and do the same process. That's custom to that particular patient.
That's true.
That's amazing.
And I guess part of it is we are a contract manufacturer. We don't have the FDA approvals. We don't have the patents, but we serve a number of customers, including one who does that.
Okay. Well, I think it just this just goes to show that Oregon City is working not just to, as some of certainly my detractors, that all we're doing is producing minimum wage jobs. That it's existing companies like Orchid, like Miles Fiberglass, like many others, Benchmade Knives, and a score of others that we're retaining in Oregon City. $75,000 grant is a cheap price to pay to keep 200 family wage jobs in Oregon City. So thanks for coming up and telling us a little bit about your company, and we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. You ready for a motion there?
I'm always ready for a motion.
I didn't know somebody was here to speak or something.
Oh, Mr. Giver, did you have something to say?
Okay.
Well, you were on my list, and now you're not. Oh, okay.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to move to approve Economic Development Incentive Program award to Orchid Orthopedic Solutions, Oregon Incorporated.
Second.
Further discussion? Then call the roll, please.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Okay, let's see. We've taken care of John's thing. I was hoping that Commissioner Mengelberg would be here by now. Let's take care of the consent agenda, and we can come back. I have an item I am walking on. Sorry.
Item
We have to
7D.
do. We have 7D. 16-296 election results for the May 17th. 2016 election is certified by the Clackamas County Clerk for ballot measure number 3-479. Status changes of Wesley Lynn Park, allows easement in public road. I'm just going to say something at this point, and that
Wesley
is
Lynn.
Wesley Lynn, isn't that what I said?
He said, well, it sounded to me like West Lynn.
No, Wesley Lynn Park.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm pretty sure Mayor Axelrod would have a hard time with me doing
Building
something
a
about
park.
one of his parks. But so apparently we as a city did a poor job of messaging this issue. So we will have to go back and see if we can't do a better job next time. After 2 recounts, the measure failed by 3 votes.
Jeez.
So this really should have been a housekeeping thing. So we're going to have to do a better job when we go back out in November to explain to people why this is a good thing and it's not a bad thing. So does staff have something more to say about that than that?
No, just that the Oregon City Charter requires that you guys accept the
Certify the
certify the
yes.
ballot. So if you could vote on that,
Motion?
that would be approved.
Move to approve 16-296 election results for May 17th, 2016.
You're the only seconder, Mr.
Oh,
Shaw.
second. Excuse me.
Further, call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Right.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Okay. So let's do the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything from consent agenda? Raymond, you may want to hang on for a second. I'm just saying. Okay, so I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Call a roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. So the reason I asked Mr. Rendelman to stay is the item I am walking on is on Monday I have a Willamette Falls Legacy Project Partners meeting, and one of the issues that is going to be discussed is the issue of this Whitewater Park thing. And because of the way the process is working with the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, the design team is at a place where they need to know whether this is going to be part of the process or not. I can't go much farther on down the line without knowing whether this water park idea is something that we are going to want to do as the partners. I got an email, I don't know, it was a week or so ago, detailing this. Have talked to Councilor Collette and a couple of other folks, and I wanted to have a discussion tonight that's why I was hoping that Commissioner Mengelberg will be here soon. Did you get any of this up on the?
I did provide hard copies.
And there's in the back, there's hard copies as well.
And it'll
Okay.
be the
So-
Willamette Falls Legacy Project Partners Group. Attachment is the information that'll be going to the partners group that was sent out to the partners group for their meeting on the 11th.
So basically, and I apologize for not getting this up so the public can actually see it, but the same documents that we have are back there on the back, and there's Commissioner Mengelberg,
Perfect.
right on time,
Right
perfect
on
timing.
cue.
So the question that we need to come to a consensus or an idea about is whether we feel that this is a piece of, this is something that we feel like we want to move forward with, advancing it to the partners group. I have some real concerns, and one of them that's shared by Mr. Conkle and the planning staff is, does this meet the four goals of the four goals that we have for the Legacy Project? I have some questions about that. Moreover, I have questions about, and this is the sort of the same issue that we're having with the Regional Wastewater Committee and the Omni Processor, is could this thing be permitted? And unlike the other thing that I'm talking about, this is a whole slew of different agencies that would have to be involved in getting this done. And we all know that just getting something through Oregon City takes a certain amount of time. But imagine the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, the United States Fisheries Service, the whoever controls the water and the water rights issues, temperatures of the water, the fish migration, working in stream, all of those different things would be what I would think would be a permitting nightmare that could take literally years and years to complete. And we don't have years and years to make a decision about whether we want to put this project in there. The other concern that I have, well, and there's, of course, PGE would have to approve it. When this thing would probably be the most popular is at the lowest flows times of the year for the Willamette River. Obviously, PGE has probably the oldest water rights at the falls at this point in time. So if the water was too low, then the park wouldn't be able to operate, or we would have to supplement it somehow. Then there are just the issues of financing. There is no financing plan at this point in time. We certainly can't use any of the money from the Riverwalk to do any of this work without it being approved by the entire partners group, and even then some of those monies could possibly be restricted from being able to be used for that. I personally have some concerns about whether something like this could be successful here, given the fact that we only probably have at most 3 months out of the year when normal average users would be able to use this without having to have very heavy wetsuits or other kinds of equipment to keep you from freezing to death. The Willamette runs at about 50 degrees, 55 degrees most of the year. So I want to have that discussion. If some of you feel like there are great positives to counteract some of those negatives, I'd like to hear.
Rocky's ready.
Yeah.
He's
I
getting ready.
didn't even mention parking.
Well, that was where I was going.
So their study says that they would need, if the people that they estimate to come would come, they would need 300 parking places. They say some of those could be shared by other things, on the site. But given the amount of time and effort that we've spent so far, almost 3 years of master planning, other things, probably longer than that actually. Again, I throw the question out to you, and I'll shut up now.
All right.
Okay, so couple thoughts that I have on this. I guess I would ask, we've been this entire commission has been part of the conversation for Willamette Falls Legacy Project for quite some time. Haven't been a partner in terms of going to the partnership meetings, so I don't know to what degree specifics have been gone through in that group. But I guess my question would be, going forward, my thought process, or at least my understanding, was the design team was really not necessarily excluding any ideas, that they were basically moving forward to bring ideas to us. So have we excluded any other ideas? Because I think this is just one of the ideas that's on the pile of things to look at, and I don't necessarily think pulling it out of it makes sense if we haven't done that to anything else.
Can I answer that question before
Sure.
we move on?
Yeah.
So, no, we haven't thrown anything else out, but that is only because none of the other quote ideas have been what they call a programmatic change in the site. So unlike many of the other ideas which can be integrated as we move along in the design of the Riverwalk project, this is so big and so different from all of the other things that we've talked about. That is why staff, this has been looked at by Metro staff and the Willamette Falls Legacy Technical Advisory Committee. That's why they're bringing it to us now to ask us to have this discussion. We're not going to make a decision until the next Willamette Falls Partners meeting, but they wanted all of us to have these discussions with our various folks to come to the table prepared to talk about this and the general position of Oregon City and Metro and Clackamas County and so forth when we go to that meeting on Monday. So that answers that question.
Sort of.
I think to get to your question of why would we exclude something, there are real and significant impacts to timing and budget. The partners have all agreed to contribute funds. We've been able to accumulate $19.5 million for the project, $12.5 million from the state for the construction of the Riverwalk. Throughout this process, the land use approval, what's proposed in this two-dimensional whitewater park was not contemplated or thought about, and really it's balancing against the four values. Now, is whitewater, kayaking, paddle boarding, boating, fishing, walking along a riverwalk, those are all programmatic type of uses that can be incorporated in the design of something. This is pretty significant. This is far beyond the 120-foot easement that the public partners have. The majority of this is on private property. We have an adopted budget that the partners group has adopted. There's questions of are we taking on the design and engineering of this, of which we estimate $2 to $3 million, of which there are no funds for, and there is no. It's not part of the scope of work with Snowhead Dialogue and Mayor Reed. So there are just, it's one of these points where we need some direction, and that's the way the partners group was set up. Working groups, technical advisory committee. If things needed to be elevated, they were elevated to the partners, which are the two electeds and the CEO of each organization for these decisions. I appreciate the proposal. I truly believe it's the wrong spot.
Well, I guess I would rather have this part of the pile of paper that goes to the design group, and if they tell us that, then great.
Well,
but I think that just I don't know much about the details of this plan or how detailed it is, but looking at it, it doesn't look like it looks like it could integrate just as much as any other plan could integrate into the downtown, in terms of still leaving buildings available for other use and mixed use, everything like that. So I guess, and I also am saying this because I know that Clackamas Heritage Partners at one time had a plan for that site, and they have piled their plan on top of this paperwork as well, wanting to see certain things happen or that they've put money into in the past. Whether or not that's reality, I don't know, but it should be thought about. I think all of them should be thought about as this goes along, and if it comes to a point where it really doesn't pencil and it doesn't make sense, I don't know, but I don't think I've heard that.
We're having a discussion. I would encourage you to look at this document, because this is the document that staff, the questions that the Legacy Project Partners staff
Okay.
sent to the Whitewater folks, and their answers to those questions. And I think this will show you why this is just, I don't know, not ready for prime time is not the right word. It just has not had enough meat to the bones to be able to go forward with any kind of certainty.
Well, we haven't given it the time of day to even discuss it, really.
We have, at the staff level, we have
Okay.
contributed significant amount of time with not only Willamette Falls Legacy Project staff, but also the design firm of Snowhetta in dialogue.
Commissioner Shaw, or were you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone through all this
Right.
yet, so I don't know.
And I apologize for dropping this on us, but I didn't realize, I was not aware until just this week that
The
this
agenda
was-
just came out.
that this was going to get dropped
Okay.
on us. So I wanted to make sure we all had a chance to, I could at least hear what you guys have to say. Commissioner Shaw.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because it just is here this evening, but I think I was really disappointed when I first heard about this project. It came before the Oregon City Business Alliance, which was great exposure for them, but instead of coming to us first and doing a little preliminary vetting and stuff, it came there first to the Oregon City Business. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. That
Well,
here's the city commission here. We're the ones that are kind of involved with this thing.
To give them credit, they did try to meet with me and Tony, and the time frame that they tried to do that, I didn't have time, and we were in the midst of other things. So
So on that point too, and like I say, I haven't had time to vet this. I'm just looking at it right now. But and the two first things that really came to mind here was, or actually probably three or four, but this is about the Willamette Falls, and this kind of takes away from that. I don't see how this complements what we are trying to do already with our project. And I mean, it really looks cool and everything, and I just don't think this is the spot for it. And on the second thing, just on a physical thing, is the parking thing. I keep thinking about how the traffic and parking is going to be with our project the way it is, and with our river walk. And then if the falls open up across the river, there's going to be people that go to that and then come over to see us over here. And now we have this. I just don't see how that's all going to coordinate together here. So I'm just not real thrilled about this project, even though it looks really nice, and I just don't see how it's going to coordinate with everything else we got going.
As I'm looking on page 1 at the bottom paragraph, the thing that stands out at me is the Whitewater Park proposed in Bend. They were asking for a $28 million Parks and Recreation bond measure. So the model seems to be that they're looking at the city to financially, or the citizens to financially support what is basically a private sector venture. And the other thing that stands out to me is that we're trying to create an authentic place here. We have so much history and landscape, and everything about the site is special and unique to Oregon City. Whitewater is not it. I mean, it is flat water, it's a falls. It's not a place where you kayak. That might be on the Clackamas, but not here. So I would have reservations about moving it forward, especially with some of the points you raised, Dan.
anybody else?
And I do want to clarify. We've been working on this for quite a while at the staff level, and it was just getting to the point where we had to have some decisions made. So we're bringing it to you tonight. We just sent out the agendas for the partners meeting on Monday the 11th. We're going to present this in a work session, so that folks have time to kind of read through it and kind of digest that. And then we'll be able to come back at our next meeting on the 20th, and we can give an update then on how the meeting went on the 11th and any additional information. So not looking for a decision. I realize it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of information here. But, I really do appreciate the initial thoughts. And, now you'll have a little bit, 2 weeks to kind of think about this. We'll bring back some other information and then go from there.
Commissioner Smith?
Well, we knew this time would come. When we started talking about the details and things were a little harder than it has been. So I guess, so far in this entire Willamette Falls Legacy process, I think I could speak for this whole group as saying I'm pretty amazed at how far we've come. Talking about this a few years ago, thinking, well, is anyone going to even buy the mill site? Is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? We're even going to have a point where we get to start designing, or even, we've come a long way. And I think throughout that process, we haven't had too many, well, I don't know of any, people that are really not supportive of it. But this is when we start dealing with specifics that we have the really great ability to start alienating groups or having dissenting opinions on what that site is going to be, and it's going to be very complex. So I guess, for me, the ability to have that design process as open as possible as far as we can go, the better. I know that can't go on forever. But also in the event that we start making decisions that are more specific, what is our plan to continue the buy-in from these groups? That this is a plan that some of us have heard about for quite some time, and then once it was in the newspaper, was out there to everybody, and it definitely picked up a lot of interest and a lot of support. So to just, go to a meeting and say, no, we're not going to even acknowledge it, I think we got to be very careful about that and try to, it may not be a full-fledged thing, but even having the idea as a possibility as what could move forward, or if this is not the right place or whatever, that I don't want to negate the fact that there's a lot of people in this town that think this might be a really great idea. Not to say that there isn't another 100 other great ideas for that site. So how we go about that, I think, is really important.
I appreciate that.
I want to. I just want to say something. If you look at the decision matrix, which is this guy, the last one, which would still continue to be included as we design the River Walk, would be to include the activities of whitewater and flatwater kayaking as a potential program elements of the Riverwalk design. So we're not saying that kayaking and paddleboarding and stuff, would be completely eliminated. Right. Just that this particular kind of a park thing wouldn't be, feasible in the time frame that we have. So we're going to talk about it, like Tony says, as a work piece at the Legacy Project Partners meeting. All of the, and I have to second Rocky on the fact that we have 4 government agencies, well, way more than 4, but the 4 main partners working together to get something done is truly amazing. Just getting 2 government agencies to work together is difficult, but all 4, the state, the county, Metro, and us, working collaboratively together is truly an amazing feat. So you're right, we're going to have to reach some decisions, and unfortunately something as big and as complex and as expensive and with as many unknown questions as this, I believe is just going to take too much time. But I will certainly take your concerns to the project partners. That's why I wanted to have this meeting. I try never to make decisions about anything of any real import without getting your input. Anything else from anybody on this? Okay, then I think we have our marching orders, Mr. Conkle. Then I guess the last thing we have now is communications. Mr. Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, Commissioners. We talked a little bit earlier about the 3% tax for marijuana. So the marijuana regulations in Oregon City Open House, the second one of those that we'll be conducting is Monday, July 11th, here at City Hall from 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. Also wanted to remind Mr. Mayor to have a discussion about appointments for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Right,
with
so-
the loss of Commissioner Pauley from that seat.
So we had a brief discussion between the three of us, and since you weren't here, we picked you. No, I'm just you weren't here.
I'd be delighted. I would love it. Thank you.
But you do need to check with your city manager because those meetings typically run from like 1 to 3. On
How often?
Huh? It's like once a quarter.
Oh, that should be fine.
Usually quarterly.
Okay.
I'd be delighted to serve.
So I will make that appointment now then, Mr. Conkle.
All right, I appreciate that. Before you on the dais, we also passed out the 6-month goals progress update. So every 6 months we provide an update on where we're at on the goals that were adopted by the Commission as part of the budget. Just includes where we think we are in terms of status of accomplishing those goals within the within the 2-year budget period, as well as some brief comments to just provide updates of what's been happening over the last 6 months since the last update was provided to you. Obviously, some of these probably have much more detail than what's provided in the comment section. So if you do have questions, please feel free to contact me and we can provide additional information that we may have on that. Next, we will have a update from the library director.
Woo! Good evening, Mayor Holliday and Commissioners. I have no pretty pictures for you tonight.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
I know you are. I can tell by the look on your face.
So we're all taking a walk.
Yeah, we're all going to walk.
Yeah, we could. We're officially closed, and we've been packing for the last 2 days, and we are all packed and organized and ready for the movers to come in and start moving us into the building starting tomorrow. So it will be very phased, but it's more or less on time. We will be open when we said we were going to be open about the 21st. And it's all very exciting. It was with great satisfaction that I took apart my cubby walls today. They were remainders from the old City Hall that the police did not want to keep because they got new ones when they got to keep the old City Hall for themselves. So they were like,
You're rubbing at my face.
no.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
There you go. They were very well used, and we were just like, the staff is so excited that the next time we work with patrons, it is going to be in a beautiful new building, and we're just really excited. There's still a lot of work yet to go, but it's just going to be great, and it's really beautiful.
And you got doors now.
On my office.
No,
yeah.
the front doors.
Yeah, oh yeah, we've got 2 sets of sliding glass doors on each side, and the 7th Street side where the reading circle is, there's kind of a little patio there as well that kind of mimics the 6th Street side. It's really nice. I think it's going to make it like really usable. I think we'll see a lot of people out there using that area, but it's really coming together. Really looks great.
So how long do you anticipate this building will suit the needs of the library?
Well, that's a really good question, just because
That's a really bad answer.
Yeah, well, so many materials are going electronic. That's what makes it hard to anticipate. I think this will work for the community for a long time. Our community room is not huge. It seats about 50 people. I see that as kind of like one of those areas that we can use more rooms like that, because we know about the lack of meeting space in this. So it's those kinds of things that I'm more worried about than collection things.
But we'll have, there'll be that kind of space in the new police building.
Which will be great. Yeah.
Sometime down the road,
Yep.
we're going to have to replace City Hall.
Yep.
So I would anticipate that there would be space of that sort in that building. So
Right, and the Pioneer Center is a great resource as well, that we use a lot. It's very well used. So I anticipate well past the time I retire.
one would hope so. I'm hoping well past my lifetime, actually. So,
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be a fantastic building for long past that.
all right, is that it,
Yep, that's it.
Mr. Manager?
And then my last update is that I will be out of the office next week at the Oregon City County Management Association meetings all next week, so I will be missing the work session. But we'll be back for the week after that. So
And who is taking your place while you're gone?
I will provide an update. Wyatt's been out of vacation, so most likely it'll be Wyatt Parno. But I'll be working all week, so we'll be available by phone. I might call in for a couple of things.
Okay. Commissioners?
I was on vacation, and I mentioned that just because I was in Victoria, BC, and Vancouver, and every time I go up there, I see things that I think, wow, that'd be really great ideas. Great alleyways, the way that they've opened up businesses to the alleys, and we're starting to have that conversation to see things happening downtown Oregon City, utilizing the alleyways and how to do that. There was, what else? Oh, I went into a 1850s house built right, well, I shouldn't say built next to the BC Museum. The BC Museum was built next to the house. And learned a lot about the restoration, some of the details of that house and how it may pertain to continuing on with the interior of the Ermitinger house. Huge connection between the doctor, I can't remember the name of the doctor, but the house that's there in Victoria, 1853, was a doctor who worked for the Hudson Bay Company. His wife was educated in a school here in Oregon City. So the whole museum referenced Oregon City and talked about the real crucial connection between the history of Oregon City, Fort Vancouver, and Victoria. And then, let's see, what else? I think that's about it. There's a lot of great things when you go to another place to look and think about how it could pertain to our city and the things that we're doing. So it was a good trip.
Commissioner Shaw, got anything for us?
Well, a couple things here. I did get to go to the ribbon cutting for the Curves outlet down on Washington Street. I did not have to partake, so that was good. And did go to the down at the end of the Oregon Trail. They did a presentation of the oldest businesses.
I wish, yeah.
That were
I
there.
missed it. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Commissioner Mengenberg was with us, and that was pretty cool, recognizing some of these. And the oldest business, obviously, was Bush Furniture, so that was pretty cool. Got to recognize those folks. And then went to the community development director interviews and stuff. That was pretty nice. When you have a city that's actually bringing people from West Virginia and Canada to come to be part of the city, that's a lot to be recognized for. So also OCBA had the forum on the college bond, how they're spending their money, or our money. And that was pretty informative. And then had an OC Together meeting, and this is the group that's really trying to get a handle on marijuana in our schools. So, and the last thing was the regional wastewater meeting last Thursday night. So,
I'll take that one.
How'd that go?
You got that one? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I joined Brian also at the Willamette Falls Heritage Coalition Award for long-serving businesses over 50 years, and I have to say Oregon City was very well represented. I would say at least 2/3 of the businesses were from Oregon City. Also attended the OCBA as well as the meet and greet for the Community Development Director. I went to a downtown Oregon City discussion with business owners where they were coordinating with the Main Street program on how to take advantage of events and how the businesses could be interacting with the people that are coming to events, being open. Some of the business owners were saying, well, we could wear T-shirts promoting that event. We'd be happy to. We'd have our staff do that. They were very bought in and supportive of that. So I thought it was very productive. I'd say there were probably 20 people on the meeting. So that was very well attended. Also attended the C4 Clackamas County Coordinating Council retreat on behalf of the city. We spent one afternoon talking about transportation. John Lewis was there with me for that. And then on Saturday, we talked about a lot of creative ideas and resources for affordable housing. It was kind of a beginning of a discussion, lots of inspiration, lots of information about various resources, and I thought it was worth going there. I went to the Parks Foundation 501c3 celebration, so that's really exciting. They're now able to write grants and accept donations to help augment what the city can do around parks, and Tony Conkle and Eric Underwood were there also. I went to the Metro Enhancement Committee meeting, as all of us were. And then last night, I had the pleasure of going to the Hillendale Neighborhood Association picnic, which was with Commissioner Shaw, and it was well attended. And pickleball was being played in Forest Prairie. Every court was being used, and they were having a lot of fun at it. So
Again, we didn't have to participate, so.
which was good.
Good fun.
I want to see the Facebook video of you playing pickleball.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Mayor, if I forgot one thing.
Go ahead.
We'll send out a calendar invite, but just wanted to get it, make you aware. On Monday, July 25th, we're looking at holding a joint planning commission and city commission meeting. We'll have the design firm representatives in town for the Riverwalk for Willamette Falls Legacy Project. They'll be here for the first city celebration, where we'll be a part of that on Saturday the 23rd. But we wanted an opportunity for the planning and commission and city commission to be able to sit down with them as well. So we're looking at that night. They're going to be in town roughly Thursday through Tuesday. But we'll send out an invite via email. But just wanted you to be aware that that is coming up.
Would that be an evening meeting or a daytime?
It will be. It will be.
Okay.
Yes. After we're trying to nail down whether it's 5:30, 6, somewhere in that area.
Thank you.
You said the 25th?
Correct.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
I may be on a business trip to California that week, but we'll see. So is that it?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay. So, oh yeah, let me do that first before I go. So,
Rita Mills.
Rita, come on up.
Have a few words in a loud voice, so I really need this.
Good.
I just want to compliment Maureen on the wonderful job that she's done. I mean, she's everywhere every day. So, and also, the library is looking very good. I like being able to still see the Carnegie, and I feel like it's tying in very well. And I heard a compliment on the equipment for the playground that was also the way the neighborhood wanted it. But I'm speaking for me, not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to be careful of this. Anyway.
Don't worry, we know. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of go backwards here. I did attend the Regional Wastewater Capacity Advisory Committee meeting on I don't know, when was that, last Thursday? As most of you know, we've been talking, certainly Councillor Johnson and the rest of the Gladstone Council and us have been discussing this Omni processor. In the intervening week prior to the meeting, Janicki Bioindustries sent a letter to the committee withdrawing any proposals they had because basically they felt like they got sandbagged at the last meeting when they came to present. There were a whole list of rather unrelated folks like Doctors Without Borders and other people that showed up to testify against their thing, and that wasn't really what that meeting was supposed to be about. It was supposed to give Janicki a chance to be able to present their stuff in an unbiased manner. So they withdrew their proposal at the meeting on Thursday. They wanted to move forward with going to the anaerobic digesters, which is about a $55 million project, which would include rather excessive rate increases for the Tri-City district, as well as whatever's going to happen in CCSD1. Certainly the information I've gotten from my commission, you guys, is that we wanted to pursue a less costly option to that, that the Omni processor was about a $10 to $14 million project versus a $55 million project. So even though it had some what I consider minor risks as far as it being technically a new technology, I think those were seriously outweighed by $40 or $45 million worth of taxpayer money. So at that point, when they decided that they wanted to have a vote on that, Councillor Johnson and I voted no, and at that point we chose to leave the meeting. And will no longer be attending the Regional Wastewater Committee because we feel like that we spent a year and a half or so talking about this, trying to get somewhere, and it was pretty apparent from the very beginning of the process that Clackamas County, the Board of County Commissioners, had already predetermined what the outcome was going to be. They just wanted to get us together in the same room so they had a stamp of approval moving forward with this big bond project. So Oregon City, unless I am directed by the commission otherwise, will not be attending the regional committee anymore. We will continue to be represented by myself at the Tri-City Advisory Committee, where we feel like we may still have some influence. But this is not a done deal. There's a lot of process that's going to have to go on, and I think we still have an opportunity to change minds. Certainly the election in November could change the composition of the Board of County Commissioners and might change some thought processes. We still believe, and so to move on from that, prior to that, I spent almost a week in Indianapolis at the U.S. Conference of Mayors and got an opportunity to meet and talk with mayors from all over the country and learned a bunch of stuff. I did a forum on Amtrak and with the Amtrak mayors, and including Mick Cornett, who is the mayor of one of the big cities back east, I forget where. And got have a good chat with the Amtrak folks, and they're talking about ways to promote Amtrak and rail transit and all that stuff. And I have a card and had a chance to talk with the main Amtrak guy to talk about how we could get not just the state trains, but the actual, like the Coast Starlight, to stop. And so they're willing to have discussions with us about that, given that we have our new our new old train depot and a platform, and it's now being occupied. It would be good to have that. They also had, and you can find this on Amtrak's site, but they had an intern this last year who took her bike and did 10,000 miles all the way around the country, stopping at different places and getting off with her bike and going and doing stuff and then getting back on. And it's sort of a rail pass thing. I was amazed. She said between her staying with friends and other bike people along the way, they only spent for the entire trip about $2,500. That's pretty amazing. So they were talking about doing something, having a mayor or someone else do like that trip. And I said, well, I think the better way to do that would be to grab a mayor from each state that is, because what they were doing is they were promoting these new baggage cars that have places so you don't have to take your bike apart to put them on the train. You can just hang them up and they'll somehow lock them down so they're stable and all that. So we talked about having a mayor from each of the states that they're going through do their state, because mayors are obviously closest to the folks and all that sort of thing. So I volunteered Mayor Gamba because he's the bike guy. So I'll be talking to him about that for that piece. We talked about a lot of things. I had an opportunity to get us hooked back up with Airbnb, and hopefully we're going to actually start getting some of that tax revenue from the transient room tax from Airbnb. The smaller cities kind of take a back seat, but I was in this meeting and this vice president or president of Airbnb was talking about how they love to work with cities and how they want to pay these transient room taxes and all this stuff. And I'm sitting in this meeting on a Saturday, and I texted Wyatt Parno. And I said, hey, Wyatt, how are we doing with Airbnb? Are they paying their taxes? He goes, he's texted back to me. He said, no, we've sent them 2 or 3 letters. They're ignoring us. So the next one's going to be a legal letter from Oregon City. And I said, okay, thanks. And so as soon as the guy was done talking, I said, I got a question. I said, I just texted my finance director, and he says you guys aren't answering our phone calls. So what's up? And he's like backtracking, trying to figure out how he was going to take care of that. But I did hook up with their municipal director and got him in touch with Wyatt. And so hopefully we'll get that worked out. There were a lot of other rather dry, boring things that we do at the Conference of Mayors, but we had a couple of interesting speakers. Presidential candidate Clinton was there and spoke. The Dalai Lama was on a panel with, now sit down, you won't believe this. So it was the Dalai Lama. It was some very influential business guy that I'd never heard of that's made billions of dollars and is now being a philanthropist. And he said about, I don't know, you got about 3 sentences in, and then Lady Gaga. Yes. So there's quite the expanse there. The Dalai Lama was interesting. He's sometimes very difficult to understand. But is a very funny and humble guy. And in fact, the Friday morning that I was there, I went to a fire training thing that the IIA, the International Association of Firefighters, puts on. When I was coming back from that, I was getting out of this van right back in front of the hotel, and I stepped off, turned left, and boom, literally ran into the Dalai Lama, who thought he was supposed to be getting on the same bus that I was getting off of. So I just said, hi, Your Holiness, and went about my business. There's a lot more that went on, but there's a couple of special things I want to talk about. One, the first night we were there, every night there's some kind of a sponsored event, and they put it all in buses, and we get this police escort to this town called Carmel, which is about, I guess, 20 minutes northeast or northwest of Indianapolis. And Carmel's a town now of about 70,000, and they were sort of just like a bedroom community to Indy. And they wanted, so a few years ago, this new mayor got elected, and he wanted to kind of change the image of the town. And the old town is very similar to Oregon City, not as old, but certainly in the early 1900s. And so what they did is they put out a bond, and I forget exactly how they paid for it, but they built a replica of a French concert house out of the 1700s or something. And when you stand back 150 or 200 feet away from it, it looks like it was built then. It wasn't until you got up close enough that you could see that the grout between the limestone, wasn't cracked or chipped, and everything was perfect. But the thing seats, I don't know, probably a couple of thousand. It has 3 rows of balconies with the little things like at Ford's Theater where you can seat 2 or 4 people. They had a concert. Michael Feinstein, I had never heard of the guy, but he's apparently a very famous guy who does music from the 20s all the way to the 70s or 80s. So, and he brought, they run a music program there for kids. for excelling high school musicians, both vocalists and instrumentalists, and they had some of those kids come and play, and they were fantastic. So that was a really cool thing, and something that we might think about moving forward as we start to establish Oregon City as more of a regional player. Maybe that's something we could do on either the public-private partnership at the Lamb Falls Legacy Project or somewhere else in the city. So it's certainly something that we could think about. I guess the other big deal for me was my dad was a big open wheel racing fan, and back in the day before there was such a thing as live television, he would go to the Paramount Theater downtown, which is now the Schnitz, and watch the Indy 500 via some kind of a closed circuit setup on the big screen. And he went every year until it came on TV. Well, this year they took us to the track again with the police escort. We actually rode on the buses actually on the track. When we got off the bus, you could kneel down and kiss the yard of bricks, which is the start-finish line at the Indy 500. And then they actually gave us wristbands, and we all got to take a 2-lap ride around the Indianapolis track at 125 miles an hour. So that was very cool. And I actually met up with a couple of very serious guys who we're going to be able to work with on some other projects, but one of them was one of the lead founding donors of the track there, and he was talking to me. He looks down, he goes, "Oh man, look, they're almost done." He says, "I think they're going to have one more thing. Do you want to take a lap by yourself?" And I said, "Sure." So he called down and got me down. So it was just me and the lead driver, and there were a couple other people in cars behind us, but I got to do the last 2 laps by myself in the passenger seat with the lead driver, who was he's been retired from Indy for just a couple years. So those are the kind of amazing experiences we get to have. But the most important thing to me, and I apologize for taking so much time about this, is the opportunity to sit down and network and talk to mayors from all over the country and hear the problems and some of their solutions. And so I had a chance to sit down with Kevin Johnson, the former NBA player who's the mayor of Sacramento. Got a chance to sit down with the mayors of both Las Vegas and Reno. The mayor of Spokane. We're having some business discussions on my private side. So just a lot of different interesting people from all over the country, and to hear what they're doing, it makes those trips worthwhile as far as making those connections and being able to reach out to other mayors and find out if we have a problem, maybe there's something that they've already done or they already know about that can help. So I'll bring back a lot more of the technical stuff to you guys in a work session we can hopefully have in the next couple of months. The last couple things on my list, I just want to reiterate the fact that the Commission, as the Metro Enhancement Committee, along with Councilor Collette, gave out over $206,000 in grants for different projects throughout the city. And I think it's amazing that that money comes from us hosting the transfer station. And unbeknownst to us back then, I think a lot of people thought the transfer station was going to be a nasty, ugly, smelly place that would be a real detriment to the city. Fortunately, it just has not turned out to be that way. And they also provide a couple $100,000 a year or more in revenue that we can take and give out to the community to make things better throughout Oregon City. I wanted to mention a couple things. For those of us from back in the day, Abby's Pizza is now back in town. In the old, the old Izzy's up at the Berry Hill Shopping Center. They opened last Friday.
I think this Friday.
I thought they opened last Friday.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Then
So
let's go.
If not, they'll be open this Friday.
I think it's this Friday.
So that's exciting for me because where Tacho's was originally an Abby's Pizza back in the day, and we did a lot of things from Boy Scouts to sports teams and stuff there. And then I wanted to mention, since Parks didn't, I think this Saturday or this week is the first week of the concerts in the park on Thursday. So this Thursday is the first concerts in the park at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center at the Bowl at the new stage. And then I have a piece for that's my communications. I do have one item for future agenda items. and that is I had to take a business trip to Southern Oregon a week or so ago. No, it was before the mayor's conference, and I was going to Cave Junction and ended up in Medford because I wasn't paying attention. So I had to. I drove into Medford, realized what was going on. I said, "Well, I'll have lunch and I'll just drive back." So actually, to get to Cave Junction, you have to turn right at Grants Pass, not at Medford. So as I pull into Medford, there are all these signs at the intersections as I come off down the off ramp that say, by city ordinance, it's illegal to transfer anything from a pedestrian to a vehicle or vice versa. And so I did a little more investigating, and apparently this is their answer to the panhandling at intersections question. They've passed it. It's been in effect for at least a year. They've had no challenges to it in court. Their police department says they've only issued a few tickets, but it has virtually eliminated that issue at those intersections. Now it's moved kind of off maybe onto private property in some places, so we may be able to tweak that, but I would like us to look at that as one of the ways to make Oregon City less attractive to the homeless population. Because whether we realize it or not, these aren't what I would call indigenous homeless. These aren't people who lost their homes in Oregon City for whatever reason. They're coming from the Portland metro area and other places. And one of the reasons they do that is because there's places like that where they can make enough money to buy whatever it is that they need to buy. So I just think that I would like for us to take a look at that and see if that's something that we would be interested in doing. So with that,
so before
Commissioner Shaw,
let's go back to the regional wastewater meeting.
Yes.
See, Tri-City Sewer District is a major component of that. And we got to see if we need to be participating or not. Now, you're saying we aren't going to be, but I think we need
I said we aren't going to be unless you make me, is what I said.
Well, should we be represented on that body? So I'd like to hear from other folks here to see if we need to be represented or not on that regional wastewater committee.
I think I'd rather than do that tonight, because I'd like to have Tony and John Lewis and some other folks be able to be involved in that. We have a work session. Unfortunately, Tony's not going to be able to be there, but I think we'd have had enough staff that can they represent your position without you being there, or would you rather put it off or have a special work session?
We can talk about it. I don't see why we couldn't have that conversation. John and the other staff, they've been involved with it since day one.
Yeah. So, I certainly want your input. The decision I made was political based on the amount of time and the interactions with the other people, and I wanted to send a message that Oregon City wasn't going to get run over by these guys without us having, a real say in what is potentially a very expensive solution to a problem that doesn't necessarily need to be that expensive.
Well, no, and I appreciate the efforts that you especially have done trying to bring another solution to this. And I think, we need to make people aware of that we tried to bring another solution to this, less expensive, and get people educated on that. But I still think we still have to be kind of part of the solution of the wastewater in the region, and because it's in our city. So I think you did that the other night. You did. Everybody's
got their attention.
At least at that meeting, knows that we were disappointed in their recommendation, but we still, with the Tri-City Sewer District in our city, we still have to be part of that committee. I think, I don't want people outside of this committee making decisions for a project that's in our city, our facility that's in our city.
My point is that's what they're going to do anyway, Brian.
Yeah.
I know,
It's the Board of County Commissioners, and this has been literally a kabuki theater from day one.
I understand.
And you know, continuing to waste my time and staff's time to go to something that we know we are fundamentally opposed to the way they're going doesn't make any sense to us. But we can, like I said, we can have that discussion at a work session where we can really get into the meat of all of the different issues that have gone on for the last 14 months. I think what Tony and I have been doing over the last few months is on a fairly regular basis meeting with the city manager and the mayor and one of the councilors in Gladstone to talk about how we were moving forward with how we were trying to advance the Omni processor and other ways that we could cooperate. We had another of those meetings today. We're going to talk about coming up about maybe having a joint executive session with the council in Gladstone to talk about how we might move this forward and how we might message that same message that you're talking about. So, Commissioner Smith?
So I want to have that work session too, and one of the, I don't think, to me, the Omni processor piece of it, I don't know much about it as much as, we've talked about it. I know a little bit about it.
Right.
That's not the main issue. And then there's so many other issues. I just think that my concern, to answer Brian, Commissioner Shaw, is that in 2008, I was the only one on the commission when this went into effect, when the agreements went into effect, and that regional committee likes to throw that out of which of you have been.
Well, Oregon City was there.
Too. They said, yeah. I voted against it. I thought it was a stupid decision. Commissioner Nacita voted against it. The rest of the commission did not. I think that some of those people on the commission at that time realized that it wasn't a smart idea. The point that I'm going to say with this is that in 2008, we were told exactly that. Don't you want to be part of the solution instead of just not having input into this commission? Which, I think that was part of the topic at that meeting was, well, if you guys don't participate in this meeting, you don't have any say. Well, that was their way of dragging us along in 2008, and nothing has changed. So the conversation we need to have is how do we make that change?
How do we change governance?
We have to change it.
That's part of it. And that's
And
why
so
I think
it's going to be a good discussion, but we really need to have it.
And I agree. I think the change of governance is ideal. I mean, I think that every person at that table Thursday night should have been the person voting on any capital expenditure, not at the county level. Each mayor there should have been the person voting on any kind of, but that's, and I agree with that part of it too, so I do think we need to, before we say we're out, that we do need to have further discussion on it.
What I would propose is, I think it's a little, we would essentially have to have the commission report tonight for the work session next Tuesday. So what we're proposing is we go back and look at the calendar, and I believe on our next city commission meeting on the 20th, we have one quick item for urban renewal. Maybe we could do a special work session.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I don't think, Mr. Lewis, as I recall, this was a short meeting for the regional committee, and the next one isn't until September.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know there was an issue with the chair of the committee that they were going to miss the next meeting.
Yeah.
So if
She's
that's
having a
probably
baby or
September.
something like that.
Councilor Karn Power from Milwaukee's getting ready to have a baby.
So it would either be go the July 20th, have a special work session, or go the August work session would probably be the best for us to actually prepare based on our conversation.
That's fine. Is that okay with everybody else?
Yep.
All right.
Either one of those, or
Let's shoot for the 20th.
The July works better.
okay, thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Once again, I want to welcome